How does the war begin with Empire? Will Constance and Polly be executed? Will I admit I was wrong? Let's get started and find out. Welcome back. This is Sean's Take. My name is Sean Redmond, and today my take is on Foundation, Season 2, Episode 8, entitled The Last Empress. So, as we get into this episode, we're getting into it. There's only 10 episodes in the season, and this is Episode 8. We're really starting to roll now. The good news, bad news for me is I was in fact wrong. Salvor is not dead, which is good news. She is in fact being held prisoner or punished. So that does mean I was right in that was Gale with the tear because Salvor was going to be punished. So not as dark as we feared, or I feared, but not as good as Gale wants it. So now there's so much in this episode, I'm not going to go sort of linearly. I'm not going to go straight through the way the episode laid it out. I'm going to do character storylines. So starting with Gale and Salvor. Salvor's being held in almost like a silo with plates, dishes, emitting things. We find out later that they are to dampen her abilities. We do see Gale ask Tellum where Salvor is, and she demands to see Salvor. And Tellum says that's impossible because you're not even here. And it turns out it's just an illusion in Gale's mind. Gale's in one of the silos with the emitters that are dampening her abilities. So Tellum, we are really gaining that she's not only sort of dark, but possibly evil. They are feeding Salvor. They aren't torturing her, except for limiting her abilities. And Josiah, the young boy, tosses in a food package. Looks like sushi. And in talking to the boy, Salvor realizes that it's the machines that are keeping her from knowing anything or sensing anything. And that they're preparing Gale for the table, whatever that means. Doesn't sound good. So Salvor, who has begun realizing how smart she actually is, starts to think her way through. And we see her remember talking to her Harry, or the Harry that was traveling with Gale and Salvor. And he told her to go find the Prime Radiant. It's on board the Bigger. It won't look like itself. Protect it. Protect Gale. And we come back to Salvor, who takes off her jacket, and in the lining of her jacket is the Prime Radiant, which reassembles itself. She remembers that it's a gateway to Harry in the vault on Terminus. So she learned the thing, opens the Prime Radiant, asks to see the vault, and it takes her to Harry. Her Harry on Terminus. Was very surprised to see Warden Harden. He very quickly realizes that, how she did it with the Prime Radiant and how it is in a superposition, so it exists in multiple places. And the only person that could have told her how to do what she just did is him, and he didn't even know it till she got there. So there must be another him. So he's putting it all together. And she's struggling with, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to tell you, which then lets him know that he's not supposed to know. And he quickly realizes that he is the control group. And he's not supposed to know any of it. So they talk. He figures out that there's going to be a second foundation. and all of these things. And Salvor says, no, you have to help. I'm in trouble. Gale's in trouble. You have to help us. There's these things that I have to. And he says, describe them to me. Better yet, show them to me. So they use the Prime Radiant to go back to get Salvor's Prime Radiant. And he looks at them and says, oh, well, they're emitting a resonance. If you can change the resonance, probably do some damage. So she climbs as best she can and gets all the pieces that she can collect. And she creates it looked like she was tying a rope ladder, but she was in fact pulling these emitter pieces and tying them into a garland. And then messed with them until their resonance started reverberating almost like feedback. And then the entire top of her prison collapsed. That's where we leave Salvor. So we know she knows which direction the table that's going to have Gale is. And now there's no prison holding her. And there's no resonance stopping her power, her sight. While at the same time, Gale is being prepared for the table. And we find out that Tellum, every 6 to 7 decades, jumps bodies. And she'll jump from this body to a young girl's body to continue to live. And she's about to take over Gale's body. And we see the resonance patterns of sand at the top of each one. It's kind of a neat thing. You can do that on a speaker too if you do a little Google search, or right here on YouTube. And when they match, then Tellum will transfer bodies. And what Tellum said is that she tends to hear the original occupant of the body for several years until they go quiet. And that's where we left that. So let's put a pin in that, come back to that towards the end. So Constance, and Polly are going to be executed on Trantor. Brother Day is having the execution broadcast empire-wide. Everyone is gathered. They're out on a platform. And he shows the collar that's going to go around their necks and then behead them. One at a time. They only have one collar, apparently. So Day turns to Seraph, the new empress, and asks who she thinks should be killed first. And Seraph doesn't seem to be enjoying execution day. And neither is Rue. There doesn't seem to be anybody but Day enjoying the execution festivities. So Seraph doesn't answer, and Day decides, well, let's not make her wait any longer. And he decides to kill Constant first. And he gives a speech about how Foundation has become terrorists, like the people that, destroyed the Sky Bridge and killed millions of Trantorians. And so they're going to pay the price. And he puts the collar on Constant, and then everything changes. So we're going to come back to this point a few times. So Constant begins praying because she's about to die. And the first part is sort of, generic about the galactic intelligence and blah, blah, blah. And then she gets to the sort of closing of the prayer, which is, guide me through the darkness. And she repeats it, guide me through the darkness. And as she's repeating it, we see it being broadcast through the entire galaxy. And people are having a reaction to it. We see the people on Terminus, who all follow the same religion, begin to kneel and to chant with her, guide me through the darkness. But we also see on what I think was the planet that Polly and Constant were on when we first met them. But we see a bunch of people that look like hillbillies burning books. And I think that's where they were. But the one guy looks at Polly, and it has an effect. We see it have an effect on him. We see it have an effect on Constance's dad, obviously, her father, watching his daughter's execution. We see it sort of have an effect on Dusk and Day as well. Dusk and Dawn as well. But probably differently, and a much different effect. But Constant is having an effect. And Day is being Day. Going, oh, what is that? Is that a prayer? And he goes to hit the button just as Demerzel realizes, shouts for the Emperor, as Hober Mallow jumps his whisper ship right onto that platform, causing a shockwave. Yeah, a shockwave. So it knocks everything down, destroys pillars, kicks up all the dust, and Hober Mallow comes out and starts shooting his way to get Constant. There's confusion, there's disarray. We do see Constant with the collar partially closed, and it cut her neck, and she realizes she's bleeding, but she's not dead. Hober does fight his way to her, asks where Polly is. Polly is nearby, but in the grasp of two guards, and he screams, "Get her out of here." So Hober begins to take Constant back to the ship as Becky comes out, kills a few guards, sees Brother Day, and goes after him. Grabs him by the shoulder, flings him through the air. He gets right to the edge of the platform, and Becky's about to kill him when all of the guards shoot Becky, and Becky goes over the edge, and we assume falls to her death. Constant sees Becky fall, but they make their escape. They get on the ship gets into orbit, and they jump. The whisper ship goes. And then Hober has the task of getting this thing off Polly's neck without killing her. And there's two buttons that are not marked. One of them will collapse it and kill her, and the other one will release it and not kill her. He guesses, shockingly, he guesses correctly, and Constant lives. And we know, if you remember, when Harry sent Constant and Polly on their quest to Trantor and Hober Mallow on his quest, Constant said she had hoped that they were going to work together so that they could have sex. And Hober thought that was a pretty good idea, but they had other things to do. Well, now they're both on the same ship. And they jump back to Terminus from Trantor. When they get to Terminus, they realize that the Imperial blockade is in place and they're not going to be able to land. So they just shut down the ship and go dark until they can think of what to do next. And Constant says, well, this would be a good time for us to go ahead and have sex. And Hober is nervous. And Constant just loses her robes. And nature takes its course. So they have sex. When they're done, luckily, and they're laying in the afterglow and decide to have some wine, General Rios' ship finds them, and the light shines in, and they announce, you're being detained, your drives are shut down, prepare to be boarded, you'll be treated well. And that's where we sort of leave Constant and Hober. So if we go back to the platform, during the firefight on the platform as Hober is rescuing Constant, Brother Dusk immediately goes and protects Rue And Brother Dawn immediately goes and protects Sereth. Demerzel immediately goes and protects Empire Day, who orders her off. He wants to fight. And then Day almost dies from Becky. But they all make it back inside the palace, where Day decides he's going to go to Terminus, talk to Harry. Dusk thinks that he should just send the military to go level Terminus and the Foundation and just kill everyone for this act of war. And Day says, what war? There's no war. If there's violence, we're going to destroy them all. Basically saying, it's not even going to be a fight. So I'm going to go talk to this guy. He came here to talk to me. I'm going to go there and talk to him. And Sereth uses the moment to support her fiancé. And she says, Brother Day has spoken on this and blah, blah, blah. To show her support for her fiancé. Rue sees that Dawn is uncomfortable with Sereth showing affection to Day. So she knows. She's put it together. Day just says, I'm going, that's it. And he leaves Brother Dawn in charge, which is insulting to Brother Dusk, who's already been in charge before. If anybody's losing track, Dusk used to be Day when he was younger. And then when he aged out, Dawn became Day, and a new Dawn was decanted. So after Day decides to leave, Rue and Sereth go back to their chambers to clean up. And Rue begins to advise her queen that it's a dangerous game she's playing. Her queen reminds her that she's the queen and she'll make her own decisions. Sereth and Dawn meet again in their little place where they met in the last episode, where there aren't any cameras or whatever. And he takes the remedy for his being fixed, his vasectomy undoing shot, and they have sex. So maybe they've made the baby that's going to rule the galaxy after. If it's a boy, I wonder if they'll name it Cleon. Just a guess. Oh, so during the other thing, as the people from Terminus are watching the execution and they see Hober Mallow jump in, and Hober Mallow looks into the camera and says, the beheading's been canceled. Somebody in the room actually says, well, he's gone ahead and declared war on our behalf, knowing that the Foundation is now officially at war with Empire. So Dusk and Rue, Dusk caught Rue rummaging in Demerzel's quarters. And she had one of the Shadow Master's silencers so that nobody would hear her. When they talk about Demerzel, Brother Dusk can only say she always has been here and she always will be, or she will always be here as she has always been. And it's all he can say. And she points it out. And he starts to realize that anytime he tries to discuss Demerzel's origins or anything about Demerzel, all he can say is the same phrase. She will always be here as she has always been. So after the fight on the platform, the rescue of Constant, and Brother Day's departure for Terminus, Dusk and Rue go back to the mural where Dusk noticed that some of the pigment wasn't reacting correctly. And he had an idea of why. He actually he said it's something about a proximity pigment. When you get close enough, it's supposed to move. Interesting. But he brought some pigment and the silencer with he and Rue, and he puts the new pigment in the spot, and the wall opens. And they go in. Now, interestingly, when he found her in Demerzel's chambers, there's I think he referred to it as a toolbox sitting on the table. And the pattern on it is repeated on the mural, which is, so now there's two things about that spot in the mural, but the pattern was a system, a planetary system of 8 planets. And if you look at those 8 planets, it's our solar system. So I don't know if that's to indicate that that's where Demerzel is from, or if that's to denote where Trantor is, or what our solar system has to do with this empire. But that's definitely this solar system. Interesting. So, flashing to that part, he puts the pigment on, the wall opens up, the two of them go in, the wall immediately closes again. And they find a stairwell that descends. They go down, and there is a Cleon the First that shimmers to existence and recognizes Dusk as Cleon the 16th and addresses him as Cleon the 16th. And he begins to tell the tale of Demerzel. At the same time, Brother Dawn and Sereth are discussing Demerzel, and Sereth using logic about who Demerzel is, what she does, and how much power she wields that the brothers think they wield. And Dawn comes to the realization that it is in fact Demerzel who's in charge of the empire. And perhaps the three of them are window dressing. And that she, Demerzel, was Cleon the First's empress and is in fact his forever empress. And that's where we leave the episode. Okay, so a lot to unpack. Why does Day want to go to Terminus? They obviously have tech that's beyond empires, but they're going to go anyway. Now, here's something about Day going to Terminus. When Harry was banished to Terminus, it took a long time. But Day left his fiancée on Trantor to go to Terminus. But apparently he believes he's coming back in a reasonable amount of time, where it's not going to be, years of travel between these planets. So I guess technology has advanced in the last 100 years to be able to get to the outskirts of the Federation in that amount. This occurred to me when General Rios went. Because they're acting like we sent him and he's now there, where we've been taught that it takes so much time that the humans have to go to sleep and wait to get there. So they may not explain that. That may just be a thing that we have to willingly suspend to watch the show. And that's fine. It's not a big deal. So we heard a little bit about the war between robots and humans. Dusk looking at the mural, talking to Rue, at the very point where the opening is to Demerzel's secret chamber. And the war started when a robot broke one of the 3 laws of robotics. And Isaac Asimov, in all of his writings in this and in iRobot, the 3 laws of robotics are: 1, a robot can never harm a human. 2, a robot cannot, through inaction, allow a human to be harmed. And 3, a robot can defend itself only if it doesn't violate the first two rules. So at some point, a robot violated the first rule of law of robotics, and the war started. Was that robot Demerzel? Interesting. Could be. Will General Rios join with Brother Constant and Terminus to fight Empire? Could only be a war if there's enough people fighting. That's a lot from this episode. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification button so you know when our next video comes out. But I'm Sean. This is Sean's Take. See you next time.